This meeting of the Subcommittee on Military Construction, Veteran Affairs, and Related Agencies is called to order. This evening, we are considering the fiscal year 2021 funding for the Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Related Agencies bill. I'm joined by my dear friend, Judge Carter, the ranking member, who is with us by secure video teleconference today. I also want to welcome the full committee chair, Mrs. Lowy, ranking member Granger, and all of the subcommittee members, both those here in person and participating via video. Before I move to my opening statement, I want to offer a brief explanation of how this markup will work. Today's room has been configured to maintain the recommended 6-foot social distancing between members, staff, and the press corps in the room. As I mentioned, some members have opted to use secure video teleconferencing, which allows them to participate remotely. For those on video conference, once you start speaking, there will be a slight delay before you are displayed on the main screen. Speaking into the microphone activates the camera, displaying the speaker on the screen. Do not stop your remarks if you do not immediately see the screen switch. If the screen does not change after several seconds, please make sure you are not muted. To minimize background noise and ensure the correct speaker is being displayed, we ask that the members who are participating by video remain on mute unless you have sought recognition. For members using the video option, you will notice a clock on the bottom of your screen that will show how much time is remaining. At 1 minute remaining, the clock will turn to yellow. At 30 seconds remaining, I will gently tap the gavel to remind members that their time is almost expired. When your time has expired, the clock will turn red and I will move to recognize other members. In terms of the speaking order, we will follow our traditional order, beginning with the chair and ranking member of the subcommittee, then the chair and ranking member of the full committee, and then any other members who wish to speak. Finally, we have set up an email address to which members can send anything they wish to submit in writing at any of our hearings or markups, including documents to be inserted in the record by unanimous consent, amendments, motions, other unanimous consent requests, and so on. That email address is houseappropriations.submissions@mail.house.gov. That's houseappropriations.submissions@mail.house.gov. If you didn't get that down, it has also been provided to your staff. I would remind all members that they must verbally request unanimous consent out loud, separately from sending the document or written UC request to the email address. Thank you for your patience and understanding as we navigate this new technology and platform. Now I'd like to move to my opening statement. The bill before us today demonstrates our commitment to our service members and their families and to our veterans. We can all be proud of the work we did to produce this bill, which takes into account the requests and feedback that each of you and our colleagues on and off the committee have provided. Each of you have received a card this evening with your top priorities that were incorporated into the bill and report. While our hearing schedule this year ended prematurely due to the pandemic, we still had held several hearings to tackle many of the issues that agencies in this bill struggle with and that have faced neglect for too long. The subcommittee held a hearing with Department of Defense officials, private company representatives, and GAO to focus on the substandard conditions found in privatized housing across the branches of our military. We also held a hearing on PFAS and PFOA contamination and the impact of its exposure to service members. On the VA side, in addition to our annual budget hearing with the Secretary, we also held an oversight hearing on VA's electronic health record modernization in order to evoke greater transparency in the implementation process. We also held a hearing with the VA Secretary and Dr. Stone on the VA response to the COVID-19 crisis. We did that virtually. I'm proud that the bill before us makes needed investments in the programs that improve our military readiness and provides the benefits and medical care that our veterans have earned because of their service to our nation. Specifically, the FY 2021 committee recommendation provides $115.5 billion, which includes $350 million for overseas contingency operations and $12.3 billion in emergency funding to address the sharply rising cost of veterans' medical care. This is a $5.1 billion increase above the FY 2020 enacted funding level and $2.3 billion above the FY 2021 budget request. The bill provides $10.1 billion for military construction, rejecting the President's proposed cut of $2.3 billion below the current level for critical infrastructure needs on military installations. I'll remind the members, which I know you don't need reminding on this subcommittee, that 30% of the military's infrastructure worldwide is in fair or poor condition. The bill also includes $439.5 million for the Energy Resilience and Conservation Investment Program, which is $397 million above the request. $2.4 billion is provided for unfunded priorities that were approved by the DoD Comptroller. These projects can be executed during FY 2021. The total also provides $1.3 billion for family housing construction, including $135 million for housing support costs. An additional $200 million is provided for PFAS-PFOA cleanup, a priority of the committee. The bill also includes a new provision to prohibit military construction projects on installations named for Confederate officers who led and waged armed rebellion against the United States until a process has been initiated to replace the name of those installations. A total of $240.2 billion, including mandatory spending, is provided for the FY 21 programs of the Department of Veterans Affairs, of which $104.8 billion is discretionary funding. This amount represents an increase of $12.3 billion more than the FY 20 enacted level. We have finally achieved consensus with the Senate that the cost of VA healthcare is growing exponentially and cannot remain within the budget caps. For that reason, the $12.5 billion within the total is designated as emergency funding to adequately fund VA healthcare. This will help us prevent falling off that fiscal cliff we've been talking about for a number of years. The bill includes $90 billion for VA medical care, fully funding the budget request and providing for approximately 7.2 million patients to be treated in FY 21. Within this total, funding includes $661 million for gender-specific care for women, $1.9 billion for homelessness programs, $504 million for opioid abuse treatment and prevention, $84 million for whole health initiatives, $300 million in rural health initiatives, and $10.3 billion in mental health care services, including $313 million for suicide prevention outreach. Other areas of interest include robust oversight of the EHRM implementation, boosting investment in medical and prosthetic research, progress in construction of VA facilities, ensuring access and care for veterans in rural and underserved areas, including telehealth, and improving treatment of conditions like rare cancers and pressure ulcers. Finally, the bill provides an increase of 8% over the budget request for the 4 related agencies to maintain service levels and invest in needed maintenance and improvements: the American Battle Monuments Commission, the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, Arlington National Cemetery, and the Armed Forces Retirement Home. I know no one will be surprised that this bill does not fund a border wall, nor allow the President to bypass congressional intent and divert valuable military construction funding from previously approved national security projects. As I have said repeatedly, military construction dollars should be used only for the purpose that they are provided, which is to support the Department of Defense's mission, service members, and their families. With that, I really want to thank all of our subcommittee members for their engagement while drafting this legislation. It is really a joy to be able to work with each of you. I know we hear lots of our colleagues compliment one another on their subcommittees and how well they get along. I think this is a special case with this subcommittee, and it just makes me really proud to have you as colleagues. And I also, of course, want to thank my partner, Judge Carter, who not only works tirelessly and is a passionate advocate for his constituents and for people who serve in the armed forces, but he is an absolute gentleman and has become a dear friend. And it is really wonderful to be able to work side by side with you, serving on this subcommittee every single day. I also want to thank Chairwoman Lowy and Ranking Member Granger for their support for the subcommittee's work. This is a good bill that will help our service members, their families, and our veterans, and I urge all of my colleagues to join me in advancing this forward. But before I turn to Judge Carter for his opening statement, I do want to express my appreciation to members of this subcommittee who, after this year, will no longer be serving with us in Congress. Congresswoman Roby, you have been a tireless advocate for your local VA, and it's set a high bar for every other member. The passion that you bring to your job every single day, how genuine you are, how compassionate, how honest and real you are, and I can honestly tell you that one of the best experiences of all my years in Congress has become being able to call you one of my dear friends. And I don't throw that term around lightly. So to you and Riley, really, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Congressman Hurd, you've been steadfast in your support and advocacy for Joint Base San Antonio. Your commitment to the military, its training in schools, specifically the Air Force, has been critical. We'll miss the many positive contributions you've made, and you've been such a breath of fresh air to, and candor. And that's sorely lacking in our institution. So thank you so much, and we do wish you all the best. And Chairwoman Lowy, I'm not going to bother with what's written down here, because I'll just speak from my heart. I can think of no other member of all of the members in this institution that has mentored me more. I'm going to have a hard time not getting choked up talking about you, but I will dearly miss you. And the example that you set for so many women, but for so many public servants, your integrity, your compassion, your industry, I will forever remember your quote about being an incredibly kind and wonderful person who someone once said about you, holds an ice pick behind her velvet glove. And that says a lot about you and the stature that you gained here, attaining the highest position on this committee. There's no one I know that is more well-respected and who I've learned more from, so thank you. I, of course, want to thank the staff who have worked incredibly hard to prepare this bill. Thank you to Betsy Bina, the minority clerk, and Grady Bourne, and Laura Spader of Judge Carter's personal staff. And of course, I want to thank the Milcon VA subcommittee staff, my team, our clerk, Lisa Molyneux, Sarah Young, Jennifer Halra, Nicole Cohen, and my hometown girl from Broward County, Florida, Kaisha Senord, and Lauren Woolman on my personal staff. Sorry, got to fly the flag. Now, Judge Carter, I'd like to turn to you, our distinguished ranking member, for your comments.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'm honored to be here with you. It has been a joy to work with you on this subcommittee. If all of Congress was as congenial as our subcommittee has been, I think we'd be in good shape. But I want to thank you for working and with me and with the members of the minority. And I want to tell you that I appreciate you bringing this bill before the subcommittee. This is a good bill, except for a few notable exceptions, and I'll get into those areas in a minute. First, I would like to express my appreciation for you accommodating all the requests for the bill and the report, many of which were made on a bipartisan basis. And you and the subcommittee staff did yeoman's work to address each of the members' concerns. Overall, I strongly support the funding provided for military construction projects, and am pleased this bill includes funding for most every project on the service's unfunded priorities list and their cost to complete list. That's to be commended. I want to thank you for the note, and I want to note that $135 million for additional privatization of oversight of privatization of military housing is well done. And this increase also deals with energy conservation and cleanup of contaminated areas. And we heard some kind of horror stories a little bit about that this year. And those of us who have posts in our area, we share those concerns. I support the funding for the veterans programs. I want to highlight the increases for mental health, homelessness, and construction projects. As in the past, the administration failed to request sufficient fundings for the smaller agencies. But thank you for providing reasonable funding for Arlington National Cemetery, the Armed Forces Retirement Homes, and others. As you know, Madam Chair, I oppose Section 130 that prohibits the funding for projects on Army installations that bear the name of Confederate soldiers, because this provision unfairly punishes our men and women in uniform. This provision would only hurt soldiers that are assigned to the 6 forts impacted through no fault of their own. It's not acceptable to me that this provision would deny new, modern, and safe motor pool for young soldiers who work in the Texas heat to keep our tanks and armored vehicles running. Just yesterday in Texas, it was 100 degrees. Today, today it's bumping up against 100 degrees. When you have a Abrams tank sitting out in the sun because the motor pool is too small to work in, and it sits out there in the blazing Texas sun all day long, you can literally cook breakfast on an Abrams tank. It will cause second-degree burns to those who touch it with the tender parts of their body, like their arms or their elbows. It's really a shame that we have people working in such a bad situation, and we are doing something to fix that by giving them new and properly modern and full size motor pools. We should be utilizing and building a lot of more of these for the good of our soldiers. We should not be making our soldiers' lives more difficult because of an issue over which we have no control. Additionally, this subcommittee has no jurisdiction over the names of the naming of military installations. The Appropriations Committee should leave this to the Authorizing Committee. Yes, we do sometimes use the power of the purse to draw attention to an issue or a change of policy. But this provision goes beyond that. Since 1940, the soldiers of Fort Hood in my district, which bears the name of Confederate General John Bell Hood, who was the commander of the Texas Brigade, have created an esprit de corps that is now legendary. They have brought their skills and dedication to every major conflict involving the United States in the last 80 years. The soldiers in my district have valiantly served and don't deserve to be unjustly punished because of the name on the front gate. I have one more slight concern to raise. This bill provides $12.5 billion in emergency funding, and I recognize the budget realities we face this year, especially regarding veterans' health care, but I do not believe we should set aside the 2019 bipartisan budget agreement as part of the fiscal year 2021 appropriation process. We're going to have to pay for this and pay the piper one of these days. In closing, let me recognize Congresswoman Roby. I will tell you that no lady has been more effective in defending issues that affect her state, and in particular, one particular problem that she has raised every day, and the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and we have got a lot of people taking a look at Mrs. Roby's special projects because of her diligence. She's a great member of Congress. She's a good friend. She will be missed. Of course, my good buddy Will Hurd, one of the smartest and good-looking guys that will work with both sides of the aisle and is a real hard-working, smart man. We're losing a lot of talent, losing Will Hurd, both on the Appropriations Committee and as a member of Congress. We're going to miss Will, and I personally am going to miss Will because I consider him one of the greatest assets we have in our Texas delegation. I'm sure whatever he does as he goes out from Congress, it will be something that's good for our nation and good for every member of the public in our nation, because Will is a true patriot. Finally, I got to say goodbye to one of the sweetest ladies I know, and I got to know her on Codell's, and I watched her fight for the right to go shopping on a Codell, and I fell in love with Nita Lori, and she's a good friend of mine ever since. I hope she takes good care of her health when she retires. I've been encouraging her to do that. She is a treasure for our country, and I consider her a good friend and have enjoyed her company the entire time. Even when she's beating up on us, she does it with grace. And Nita, we're going to miss you. So, Chairman Lowy, thank you for all you've done for our country, and thank you for being my friend. Finally, to the staff, I want to thank everybody that the chairwoman thanked, and thank all of you for the hard work. My staff keeps me informed, keeps me out of trouble, and everybody knows that's a real job for keeping me out of trouble. I'm looking forward to us moving through with the appropriations process, and I want to thank the chair for this bill, and I want to thank you, the subcommittee and staff, for what they've done for this bill. I'm looking forward to working through this process to its conclusion. And I think we'll have a good work product for the American people. With that, I yield back to the chairwoman.
Thank you, Judge Carter. Thank you for your very thorough and comprehensive statement and your dedication to your constituents and to the men and women who serve in our armed forces. Now I'd like to turn and recognize Chairwoman Lowy for her opening statement.
I want to thank, excuse me, Chairwoman Wasserman-Schultz, first of all, for your very generous, kind words. I feel like I'm giving a speech every time I just want to say, as you know, because we have shared our experiences, this has been an extraordinary opportunity for me to be able to wake up every day and just do good things. So I appreciate your very generous remarks, and still have a little more time left to do some more work, but I really, really do want to thank you. And I also want to thank Ranking Member Carter. Where'd Ranking Member Carter go? Oh, he's over there. I want to thank you too, Ranking Member Carter, for your work on this bill. I thank the subcommittee staff for their efforts to navigate member requests and formulate the product we have before us, given the challenges of the past few months. This subcommittee conducted numerous hearings, both in person and virtually, to ensure that the bill addresses the most critical and compelling issues that face our service members and veterans. The fiscal year 2021 Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Bill would invest $115.5 billion to support active duty veterans and their families, including $90 billion for veterans medical care, $10.3 billion for life-saving mental health programs, $840 million for medical and prosthetic research, $661 million for women veteran dedicated care, $1.9 billion for homelessness assistance programs, and $1.35 billion to improve military family housing. The bill also includes important provisions to make fertility benefits for veterans permanent, restricts funding for construction projects located on installations named after Confederate officers, and prohibit the misappropriation of funds for the President's wasteful border wall. The vital needs of our service members should not be sacrificed for political gains. And I do hope, Madam Chair, although having spent billions on the process of coordinating medical care between veterans and the military, I do hope that in this next session you will be able to complete the job. It's an issue that's been going on for so long, and it's so inappropriate and such a waste, but the cause is so important, and I have confidence that you're going to get this done. So I thank the members of the subcommittee and staff for your commitment to our veterans, service members, and their families. We still have several months to work together. So thank you again for your very generous, kind words.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your remarkable service and for those of us who have been able to stand on your shoulders. You'll be missed. Now I'd like to recognize Ranking Member Granger for her opening statement.
Thank you. Madam Chair, thank you for presenting the Military Construction Veterans Affairs bill today. I appreciate the work that you and Ranking Member Carter have done this year. You've addressed many critical issues that affect military installations and our nation's veterans. You've reached across the aisle to fund many projects important to all of our members. This bill funds the military construction priorities that were requested by the Department of Defense, and it helps improve family housing for the military. The bill also ensures our nation's veterans are given the care they deserve and makes certain our veterans have a dignified final resting place, whether that is here, on our own soil, or overseas. Unfortunately, we're only on our first day of markups, and I already have concerns about our path forward. This bill is drafted using $12.5 billion in emergency funding that's outside of the budget caps established last August. Now it's not the time to undo a bipartisan bicameral agreement that is less than a year old. We all agree that veterans' health care is a top priority. However, designating funding as an emergency is wrong at a time of record debt and deficits. This budgeting simply frees up funds to be spent on lower priority programs in other bills. In addition, I have concern about some policy provisions in the text, such as those that set conditions on military construction projects. I want to work with you and my colleagues to resolve our differences as we move forward, and I say that with all sincerity. Before I close, I also want to mention two outstanding members of this subcommittee who've announced they're not running for re-election, Congressman Martha Roby and Congressman Will Hurd. I'll miss those along with Nita Lowy, who is actually irreplaceable in my opinion. So we have many losses. Martha Roby has been a tireless advocate for Alabama and her district over the decades she served in Congress. She's also been a passionate voice for women, often traveling to Afghanistan on Mother's Day to promote the rights of women there and to visit our female troops serving in harm's way apart from their own children. Martha has been dedicated to our military and to veterans. She exposed problems at the Central Alabama VA healthcare system, and she led efforts to stop devastating cuts that threaten military readiness. Our committee and the nation are better off because of her service, and we'll miss her voice in Congress. Congressman Will Hurd is a fellow Texan and a national security expert. Our committee will miss his good-natured yet serious approach to solving the most challenging issues. Though with Will's background, he may still be here, and none of us would ever even know it. Will has worked to improve the care of those who fought for this great nation, seeking to improve our military installations and reform the VA health system. He has a special focus on electronic health records, a concern that I share. So I wish Martha and Will and Nita all the best, but I want them to know we're going to get every last ounce of work from them before they leave the Congress at the end of the year. So in closing, I want to thank Betsy Benis on my staff as well as the majority staff for their hard work on this bill, and I yield back, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Granger. Is there any further discussion, or does any member wish to offer an amendment to the measure we have before us? Seeing none, is there a motion to advance the legislation? Vice Chairman Bishop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
The bill has been moved to be favorably reported to the full committee. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Let me remind members to please leave their copies of the bill and report in the room, and I ask unanimous consent that staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the measure just approved without objection, so ordered. And again, thank you to all the members for your hard work. Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.